Joining me now is Nigel Dodds, Finance Minister and DUP MLA. Thanks for joining us. Now, of course, today we're reflecting the killings on Saturday evening, the political reaction to them. We saw Peter Robinson give a statement to the Chamber earlier where he spoke for the whole community. He kept using that one term. Sometimes people tend to talk about the communities or the two communities or both sides of the community, but it was clear he wanted to speak for everyone. Have you found yourself in a position as a DUP MLA having to be sensitive to the issues that your partners in government, Sinn Féin, might have on this?
Well, there's four in government and all the parties spoke today, as well as other parties that are not in the executive. And I mean, I think Peter Robinson has given tremendous leadership over the last number of days in making it very clear that people in Northern Ireland don't want to see a return to the past. They don't want to see Northern Ireland being dragged backwards and downwards into violence and all of that. And we've seen that on the streets as well, with ordinary people coming out and speaking very, very forcibly, both through their words and actions, I think, about how revulsed they are by what has happened and repulsed by it, and wanting to send a very, very clear message. But certainly the DUP is very, very clear about all of this. We have made it very clear that as far as both the language that's used and the actions that must follow, there must be no equivocation, there's been no ambiguity, and there must be no shilly-shallying on what needs to happen now. There needs to be full support, unequivocal, to the police in their hunt for these killers. And there must be the absolute determination to give whatever information is out there. And Republicans in the Republican community need to step up to the mark now and ensure these killers are brought to justice.
And how have you felt Sinn Féin have responded?
Well, I think that the fact that they have said that they should, people should give the support to the police and that they should give information to the police is a tremendous improvement from where we were a few years ago. But I think we can always look at the way in which things are done and said and say, well, you know, let's see how much more there is to be done. I do think the fact that it took 14 hours for Sinn Féin to come out and make a statement was regrettable and I think inexcusable. It shouldn't have taken 14 seconds to be able to make up your mind as to what should be done and said in the circumstances of what happened at the Mazarine barracks. And I think that the language that you should reflect the anger and revulsion that's out there in the community. People are not, in both sides of the community here in Northern Ireland, are not being careful about their language. They're saying very clearly, this is wrong, it's absolutely deplorable, it's murder. We don't want it to happen again. Give our support to the police. And that should be the message from all politicians, including Sinn Féin at this time. Has
their response then done any damage to the relationship, or is it likely to bring a closer working of the relationship between, say, Peter Robinson and Martin McGuinness?
I think the fact of the matter is that, you know, we have always said that Sinn Féin, you know, need to commit themselves fully to the support of the police and the policing and justice institutions, and there's no doubt that they've come a long way. I mean, who would have thought a few years ago that you would get Gerry Adams getting up to say, give information on the shooting of soldiers to the police and give information to the police? But there's still more they can do, I think. And I think the test in this will be how much people in the Republican community are urged and actually come forward with information about these killings, because there's people out there who undoubtedly know who these people are and undoubtedly have information, and they need to be seen to take action and come forward and give that information to the police.
What about the timing now of the devolution of policing and justice, local politicians actually taking up the reins there? Do you think that this will inevitably put that back?
Well, I've heard some people, I heard Reg MP earlier talking about the devolution of policing and justice now. Nobody's talking about the devolution of policing and justice now. He talked about things being done in the shadows, in the background, all the rest of it. There is an Assembly Executive Review Committee that's meeting openly, publicly, taking evidence on a weekly basis, which we were very insistent on, looking at the whole financial side of things. And there's nothing here that isn't happening. When we are the party that said that, you know, this needs to be considered in terms of the issue of confidence in the community. Reg MP would have had policing and justice devolved back in 2005. That was his plan, without any of the financial arrangements being sorted out or any confidence in the community. So as far as we're concerned, we're the ones that have ensured that there must be confidence in the community. And quite frankly, all of these events and the reaction to them will play into whether or not there's confidence out there. And I have to say that I think people will be taking their time very, very careful. I don't think this will help confidence in the community, and I think all of the issues that are out there still have to be resolved. There's no question of anything rushing ahead on this. I think what the DUP approach to this has been to ensure, and the legislation that was referred to is to ensure that there's no Sinn Féin Minister of Justice, to ensure that there won't be a Sinn Féin Minister of Justice, and to ensure that the thing can only happen when there's confidence in the community.
So if there's no confidence in community and this maybe damages that confidence, perhaps it pushes the devolution of justice beyond the end of the year or whatever?
The devolution of police and justice can only happen when there's confidence in the community, and anything that damages that confidence in the community undoubtedly puts it back.
And your colleagues are involved in discussions, and maybe yourself as well, about the financing of policing and justice and the resources that are required. Presumably this is going to have some kind of an impact, because we saw in terms of the debate last week the Chief Constable saying, look, I didn't have the resources with the police, I had to turn to the army to get those resources, so that there is going to be some sort of knock-on effect for those discussions.
Yeah, and there's nothing secret about these discussions of finance. As I say, they're happening on a weekly basis in the Executive Assembly and Review Committee, on which the main parties sit, including the Ulster Unionists, the SDLP, DUP and Sinn Féin. So they're all there looking at this issue. And undoubtedly the point that you raise, we have already seen massive demands on the policing and justice budget over and above what's already allocated, and undoubtedly this kind of situation is exactly what we were saying, that if there is a crisis or if there is a difficulty or emergencies arise, who's going to have to pay for that? Well, it's clear it cannot be allowed to come out of the health and education and other budgets in Northern Ireland. We're already facing difficult times in terms of public expenditure, and therefore these things have got to be right. But it proves and vindicates our approach to this, which is one of saying, as well as confidence in the community, the finances have got to be right. Previously, the parties weren't concerned about those issues. They were mad, headlong rush to get this devolved, and I think this will inject a note of common sense and realism into all of this debate.
You mentioned finances. Just on the wider point, the trip by the First and Deputy First Minister to the States was supposed to highlight investment opportunities for Northern Ireland. What's going to be missing now? They've already missed a couple of days of that visit, and indeed the message may well have to be altered. It's in a totally different context. How much damage will that have done?
Well, I think that worldwide the problem is now that the tension has been back in Northern Ireland, and the Northern Ireland has been featuring in the news for all of the wrong reasons. You know, for sometimes people complained, I heard some journalists in Northern Ireland become boring and all the rest of it. And sadly, regrettably, tragically, Northern Ireland is now back in the news for the terrible situation of the murder of these young soldiers. And undoubtedly that's going to have that can only have a negative effect. There's nothing positive in that at all. And of course that's what these people want. Now I think that the message that Peter Robinson and others are taking out to the United States is one of saying, look, Northern Ireland is open for business and there's still great opportunities here, but undoubtedly that job is made harder when you have people out carrying out these kinds of atrocious murders on our streets.
Nigel Dodds, many thanks indeed. Well, let's go back to the Chamber, where it's still questions to the Agriculture Minister, Michelle Gildenier.
I feel that that's where the money needs to be best spent.
Mr. Pat Doherty for a question. Minister.
Under the 2001 to 06 Rural Development Programme, apart from the Farm Diversification Challenge, there was no specific farm diversification measure. Yet many farmers availed of funding and training opportunities to turn skills and business ideas into income-generating activities, and businesses